Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be showcasing a trainer who climbed up to number 12 in the world on the Go Battle League leaderboard with Zekrom in the Ultra Summer Cup. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Executor8787, so many thanks for the battle submission. Zekrom is commonly a Pokemon that's only ever seen in the Master League, but due to its Dragon Electric typing, it has an ability to core break a lot of teams, especially with a lot of teams relying heavily on Belly Bolt in this format. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and we're going to be showcasing this trainer's 9-1 climb up to 2600 ELO. Hopping into the first match, picking up a bad lead Golisopod into Galvantula, but we see a beautiful catch and sneak right on cue, catching the discharge onto Skeleturge and getting a 20 energy head start. And an energy head start against a Pokemon as spammy as Shadow Typhlosion is incredibly helpful. We see a Torch Song bait that does get shielded by the opponent. They farm all the way up to 100 energy, and Typhlosion will not get to use their second move here if Skeleturge decides to shield, because Skeleturge now puts the pressure on Typhlosion to shield if they want this energy. Typhlosion is going to double shield, they end up under tapping, and this is actually perfect. You can just always let this go and go for sick farm with Zekrom. Opponent pivots out, they realize they're completely walled with the Typhlosion. Back in comes Galvantula. Galvantula will be able to apply a debuff with Lunge, but even with the debuff, it's not going to slow down Zekrom enough to prevent Zekrom from farming down. So Zekrom does have a ton of energy, but it is one stage debuffed. What do they have in the back? It's going to be a Skeleturge, and now we see a quick switch into Golisopod. This is very important as it resets the attack drop on the Zekrom, and Aqua Jet is going to hit for some pretty nice damage. Opponent now can pick up the knockout here with a Shadow Ball. The Shadow Ball will KO, but now in comes Zekrom, and Zekrom will make it to the back-to-back Wild Charges, which means this game is over. Wild Charge number 1 KOs the Skeleturge, in comes Typhlosion, and the opponent doesn't even tap their fast move. They know it's over. They get absolutely nuked with Wild Charge, and they resign the match. We move to game number 2, a great lead Golisopod into Shadow Swampert. Swampert would be a pretty big problem for this backline, so it is very nice to catch up the lead. Swampert decides to strike first with a Sludge. That's very okay for the Golisopod. My goodness, Golisopod tanks that move very, very comfortably. Aqua Jet is going to be shielded, so it appears the opponent is core broken by the Golisopod. Another Sludge. This will not knock out, but it will put the Golisopod very low, and if the opponent is protecting the Swampert, then Golisopod's probably pretty good into their backline. They safe switch into Virizion, hoping to catch an Aqua Jet, but all they're going to catch is Incinerates from Skeleturge. Skeleturge will get hit with the Stone Edge, which will do big damage, but the opponent will need 5 double kicks to make the next Stone Edge. This is only 4. This cannot be a Stone Edge. Executor knows it, so we will see a no-shield Skeleturge at 100 energy. Oh, looking for the farm down, but the Virizion hangs on. And unfortunately, Virizion is actually able to force a shield. So a little bit of a misplay there. Skeleturge is going to exit with a Shadow Ball plus a Torch Song, and in comes Swampert. Swampert will get knocked out in the back. It's Chestnut, so they're running a double grass fighter strategy. Chestnut will be forced to shield, and now out comes Zekrom, and this game is just completely over. Opponent realizes it, they are not going to waste anyone's time, and they're going to concede the match. We move to the next match, and what do you know, for the second time in 2 games, there's a Chestnut from the opponent. Chestnut farming up to the Frenzy plan just for it to get caught onto the Skeleturge. The Incinerate sneaks through as well, and to me, if you're going to safe switch an Incinerate user, this is absolutely the way you have to play it. You have to try and get catches, sneak free Incinerates to try and better your pacing. Because now Skeleturge gets to ramp up more and more. Lapras going for the Sparkling Aria. Skeleturge decides to not press the issue and instead is just going to let itself get KO'd and bring back in Golisopod. Golisopod is going to farm up, CMP tying the X-Scissor with a potential Skull Bash. X-Scissor obviously not going to KO, but the Skull Bash will not KO as well. It is the Skull Bash from the Lapras. Opponent gives up switch and brings in Golisopod. The back-to-back X-Scissors are reached. This is low enough to where the Fury Cutter might snipe down here, but it does not. That may have been damage registration error. We'll have to see, did the Golisopod survive? No, it did not, so it was damage registration error. And now, in comes Zekrom, having to 1v3 in the endgame. Zekrom has 2 shields, but that will instantly go to 0 as Golisopod is going to make a second X-Scissor. The opponent still has their Chestnut available. It's very healthy, but it has no energy because all their energy got caught onto the Skeleturge. Chestnut farming up, they're realizing they cannot get to a double superpower. They are going to fire off a Frenzy Plant, and now Zekrom is at the back-to-back Wild Charges. Wild Charge into Chestnut is going to pick up the KO. In comes Lapras. Lapras gets farmed down. It's going to be a race here at the end. Golisopod gets farmed down. Zekrom with the 1v3 and is able to take the win. Very familiar lead in the next match, Golisopod into Shadow Swampert. In comes Tentacruel, Golisopod gonna bank so much energy and send in the Zekrom. The uncomfortable thing about giving Tentacruel such an energy head start is Blizzard obviously would be deadly. The Tentacruel is actually on Sludge Wave, so no Blizzard there, but they're already at another Sludge Wave. And this is a problem because now Switch Advantage is going to be flipped. Zekrom gonna try and make the back-to-back Wild Charges, but it's unable to get there, and with Switch Advantage lost, this game, unfortunately, is going to be a loss as well, as Skeleturge is never going to be able to do anything into that Swampert. In comes the Golisopod. Golisopod's gonna get hit with the Sludge Wave as well. I really like the play pattern there. When you have a really hard counter to their safe switch, you can bank a lot of energy on your lead. The issue here, unfortunately, is that Tentacruel energy is actually very strong into the Zekrom, so Tentacruel up that much energy was just too much for Zekrom to handle. And now, in the back, oh no, it's a Shadow Venusaur, so it would have been a complete win if Switch Advantage was kept, but the decision to give that Tentacruel such an energy head start, unfortunately, ends up backfiring, and this will be the first loss for the team. And I believe this is a 9-1 run with this team, so it shows that the only loss with the team was a very preventable loss. Golisopod's still going to try and play it out to the bitter end, but there's still a shield for the Shadow Venusaur to hide behind, and obviously one X-Scissor will not come close to knocking out here. X-Scissor is going to land, and we will see the battle be resigned. Looking for the 4-1 set, a tough opponent in Matt Beer, and it's going to be Golisopod into Shadow Victory Bell. Shadow Victory Bell going to stay in this matchup here. There's the safe switch into Skeleturge, answered with Jellicent. This team is ABA weak to Jellicent, as obviously Fury Cutter, Golisopod, and Skeleturge are not big fans. Jellicent does put up an early shield, and they go for a monster overfarm. Surf will not knock out here. Opponent needs the Shadow Ball. Exeggutor tries to call the bait, and unfortunately gets rocked by the Shadow Ball. In comes Zekrom. Zekrom is now going to be hit with a Shadow Ball number 2. Zekrom lets it go. It's a Surf bait. Oh no, the bait backfires in a massive way for the opponent. Oh my goodness, if that was a Shadow Ball, Zekrom would have taken pretty significant damage, but now the Zekrom is actually pretty healthy. It's a Shadow Lapras in the back as the final Pokemon, so Golisopod energy will go far. Golisopod able to grab the final shield from the Victory Bell. It is also a shiny Shadow Victory Bell, quite the flex. Leaf Blade is going to land, and Leaf Blade number 2 will immediately put pressure onto the Golisopod. Golisopod forced to burn the first shield to get this final X-Scissor. It may not knock out, but it's going to do enough damage here. X-Scissor gets them very low. They get Fury Cutter down. Switch Clock is up. In comes Zekrom. Lapras needs to Psywave down. It's not going to happen, and the opponent will resign the match as the Wild Charge is reached. That was a 4-1 set to Veteran, and now we move to set number 2. Golisopod staring down Virizion. Obviously a catch would be wonderful here, trying for the catch, but the opponent not going to fall for it. They hold on to their energy, and now Lapras is going to be what answers the Skeleturge. Skeleturge firing off the Torch Song. Opponent shields the first move, and that is really unfortunate for them. Skeleturge not in a range where Sparkling Aria will knock out here, so Skeleturge can actually go for a no shield and look to fire off what is now a +1 Shadow Ball. This is going to hurt. Lapras monstrously bulky in the Ultra League, but gets absolutely rocked by the Shadow Ball. And from here, this just sets up farm for Zekrom. Zekrom farm is almost always going to be good in this cup. Zekrom gets a very healthy farm down, exiting with energy. And speaking of energy, back in comes the Virizion. If the Virizion is being brought in here, that means the opponent is core broken. We see an aggressive pivot back into the Golisopod, and their final Pokemon is revealed to be Skeleturge. Skeleturge, unfortunately for the opponent, just has nowhere to run against this team. Golisopod with a really nice overfarm, trying to maximize, get as much energy as possible. The Aqua Jet is going to be shielded. They have to throw instantly, or Golisopod would get to a third Aqua Jet. Golisopod gonna no shield, calling the Torch Song, and this game is so over. they're losing the Skeleturge here. The Zekrom still has 2 Protect Shields to work with, and the opponent is going to save time and just resign the match. We move to game number 2, Golisopod staring down Bellibolt. Bellibolt is a bit of a core breaker for this team, as obviously, if it's aligned out of the Zekrom's going to do very well, but outside of that, this team is a bit soft. We will see the shield grabbed and a catch of the parabolic charge onto Zekrom. Bellibolt players don't like to overfarm, so that is a tendency punish right there. Bellibolt is going to bank a move for later, sending in Decidueye, and here, I actually really dislike this Wild Charge bait. I think up a shield, you should always full send, and we see why the opponent unfortunately ends up punishing that with a no shield. This sets up an opportunity for a Skeleturge or a Golisopod farm. Skeleturge will take a ton of damage from Astonish, so in comes Golisopod. Golisopod gonna look for the full Fury Cutter down. Opponent does not get to a Frenzy Plant. This is only a Spirit Shackle. Spirit Shackle not known for its damage, so Golisopod is able to withstand, but there's an aggressive switch as the opponent switch locks Bellibolt and buffs himself with Parabolic Charge. Parabolic Charge now gonna be hit with the Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet is gonna land, and since the opponent has already taken some pretty sizable damage in this match, they're still going to get knocked out here by Aqua Jet number 2. So Bellibolt does get KO'd. In the back is Virizion. Oh no, in comes Skeleturge. Skeleturge was down by a turn, so the opponent can fire off the Stone Edge instantly. They end up Leaf Blade baiting, so a nice bait call by the opponent. They end up making a catch of the Torch Song onto Decidueye, but realistically, I think Skeleturge is okay with that, because Skeleturge is now just ramped up in terms of its Incinerate damage, and it's still not in a range where Stone Edge can actually threaten a KO. The opponent realizes it, and we are going to see them resign the match, as there's just no ability for them to win that game. We move to the next match, Golisopod staring down Credilli. Golisopod will have a pacing advantage in this matchup. In the Ultra League, I would say this matchup more heavily favors the Golisopod, just due to the fact that Golisopod tanks a Rock Tomb so comfortably here. Golisopod able to land at the first X-Scissor, which is nice, and gonna be no shield in the Rock Tomb as well. Opponent is gonna save switch into Typhlosion, and that's gonna be swiftly answered with Zekrom. While Zekrom does resist Blast Burn, it's still a Shadow Blast Burn from a Typhlosion, so it will be shielded, but the opponent Thunder Punch baits. That Thunder Punch bait didn't really do anything for them, so it's a very confusing bait from them, because if that gets no shielded, that is catastrophically bad, and it's not like it lets them get any additional moves. Either way, Zekrom forced to go down 2 shields. In comes Credilli. Credilli, oh man, it looks like Credilli may have been able to get a move there, so Zekrom forced to fire off the Wild Charge. Now, whatever they have in back has a 2-0 shield advantage, and it's going to be a Hex Skeleturge. Skeleturge immediately going to be pressured with a Wild Charge. That's going to grab the shield, and now it's going to be Hex Skeleturge versus Incinerate. Hex obviously has the faster energy generation, but it has basically no damage. The Shadow Ball does not KO. The lack of damage on Hex, meaning that the Skeleturge survives, makes the Shadow Ball, pressures the final shield away from the opponent. There is still energy available on the Zekrom too. Golisopod is going to get to this Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet will not knock out, but it's going to get the opponent very, very low here. There's the switch into the Zekrom. Opponent cannot incinerate down. They're forced to fire off energy. That's going to be the Shadow Ball. Golisopod snipes down with a Fury Cutter, and despite going down 0 shields to 2, survives with the win. Golisopod versus Virizion, gonna try for the catch. No catch to be had. Opponent going to respond with Bellibolt. Bellibolt as a counter switch to a Skeleturge. Skeleturge, if it's up energy, is actually very fine here, because how Bellibolt wins games is by continually buffing itself and making it harder and harder for it to get KO'd. But Skeleturge can just buff up its attack right back, so that way you don't really notice those defense boosts. The Shadow Ball is able to force a shield. Skeleturge is going to get fully farmed down, and now this energy on the Bellibolt is going to go absolutely nowhere on Zekrom. Zekrom, more than happy to absorb it. They go for the Zap Cannon. That still actually did quite a lot of damage. That's a nice combo play by the opponent as they bring back in the Virizion. Virizion is now going to be answered with Golisopod. Golisopod has so much work to do, but step 1 is getting this shield call right on that Stone Edge. That's a lot of energy down the drain for the opponent. Double kick obviously is an incredibly good move, but getting that shield right is very important. Golisopod also gets a big Fury Cutter down, exiting with so much energy. The opponent is very low on the Bellibolt. What do they have in back? They try for the peekaboo play. Trainer, that's not going to work. In comes Credilli, and they resign the match. Hopping into the final match, looking for the 5-0, and it's Golisopod staring down a Shadow Kingdra. Shadow Kingdra has a lot of fast move pressure, but Kingdra is disastrously slow to get to charge moves. Octazooka is a terrible move. It's expensive, and it has very bad damage per energy. Opponent safe switches into a Ferrothorn, and this is not a safe switch in this cup. Ferrothorn now going to be answered with this Skeleturge. Skeleturge takes the Thunder like it's nothing, and Skeleturge is just going to farm down. This is why the Pharaoh save switch is just not a good one. Thunder number 2 is going to land. This is not the Great League. In the Great League, 2 Thunders may have actually KO'd, but in the Ultra League, not a chance. Back in comes the Kingdra, immediately pressured with a Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is going to be shielded. This is now a Torch Song. The opponent will know this cannot be a Shadow Ball, and therefore will be no shielding, but there is the lightning fast combo play back into the Golisopod. If they want this energy, they're forced to double shield. They let it go, and in the back is going to be Scizor. Scizor gonna be hit here with an X Scissor. I don't know if that was a little bit of a bad manners BM there, or if that was just a misclick, but either way, Scizor cannot win against the Zekrom in the back. The Aqua Jet is gonna land, the opponent not even gonna see the Zekrom. They know the game is over, and here we have the 5-0 set at 25-27, which did take him to 2600s and number 12 in the world. All in all, Zekrom is an incredibly creative pick for the Summer Cup, and it's really cool to see it put in work core-breaking teams. This is a Pokemon that's designed for the Master League, so when it's used in lower leagues, it's obviously going to be quite a bit glacier overall, just due to the fact that it's nowhere near its max combat power. But even so, Dragon plus Electric is a really good coverage to have in this meta, honestly, offensively and defensively. Offensively, having a Dragon Breath user allows you to have so much neutral play in a ton of matchups against all of the best mons. Like if you think about Virizion, Bellibolt, Credilli, there aren't really Dragon Breath resists among those like PV Poke top 5, so that gives Zekrom quite a bit of neutral play, and defensively, it's really nice to be able to heavily resist electric moves considering how common Pokemon like Bellibolt are. So overall, I think it's a very smart meta pick. Obviously, it's a bit on the glacier side of things. I can't remember if I mentioned earlier in the video, but the trainer did say that the reason they ran Wild Charge is because they just don't have an Elite Charge TM available right now, and that Fusion Bolt would also work on Zekrom. They just either didn't have one, or my guess is probably only had like one and wanted to save it for something that wasn't an Ultra League Zekrom. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.